What's good, Shellitronnn here. You can call me Shells, and I'm back at again with a brand new video. And I'm gonna keep it a Bowberry biscuit. Scott Fitterer has got to get to work because these Carolina Panthers, they need some work done. Now, if you haven't heard already, which I can't imagine you haven't at this point, but the Panthers extended the offer to Scott Fitterer to become the team's new general manager. He accepted. He is now the new GM of the Panthers for the next 5 years. And for y'all keeping count, Matt Rule has 6 years left on his deal. So there is kind of a little offset there between those two guys' contracts. I'm sure we won't hear much about that for right now, but that's a very interesting point moving forward. That means the GM and the coach aren't necessarily married together as far as their tenures for the team goes. Now, if y'all don't know who this man Scott Fitterer is, check out my video right here. Might be up here. Who knows? And I've seen all the responses and reactions to that, talking about how in 2012 he had a good draft. The Seahawks were good in 2013 or 14. But in football and in sports in general, it's always a what have you done for me lately? And I wish we could talk about what a guy did 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago and talk about how it's relevant right now. Why do I hear Panthers fans talking about and begging to get Josh Norman back on the squad? And I've also heard talk about how maybe the GM and the front office heard what he was saying, but did not listen to him. It's kind of hard for me to believe that you get promoted and they say, you know what, Scott? We're not going to listen to a single word you say. We know we promoted you just recently, but all your opinions, we don't want to hear it. When we heard direct and very closely documented facts attributing Ed Dodds, a guy who was not the GM, being one of the biggest influencers in the organization when it came to both the draft and free agents. And we saw him do that in 2 different places, both at the Seahawks and with the Colts, with very direct results. And when it comes to Scott Fitterer, we're left assuming how much or even how little influence he had when it came to drafting over the past 6 years. And if Scott Fitterer had little influence on the draft for the past 6 years, then why did the Panthers hire a guy who had no influence at all in the organization? I'm going to give you guys my top 5 things that I think Scott Fitterer needs to get right and needs to get done. Number 1, contracts and balancing the cap. And that comes down to 2 really big names that everyone wants to focus on. Number 1 is Curtis Samuel. Number 2 is Taylor Moton. And really, let's go ahead and flip those around. Number 1 is Taylor Moton. And number 2, if we can get around to it, this is a 2.5, almost 3. It goes number 1, Curtis Samuel. When it comes to how important it is to get a deal done with these guys, you have to rest a beat before you even say Curtis Samuel's name. That is how important Taylor Moton is. Right now, he's our right tackle. He is one of the best right tackles, not just in the division, not just in the conference, but in the entire league. Taylor Moton is going to get paid by someone this year. That is why he did not get re-signed, extended during the season. It's not just because we had a bad GM who couldn't get him on the phone and could not get him to agree to a deal. It's because Taylor Moton bet on himself. He saw how good he was last year and the year before, and he's been constantly and consistently improving, and he just bet on himself. He said, look, if I can get to the end of this season, get to the offseason, get to March, and be healthy, he is going to have the bag thrown at him. And according to SpotRack.com, it shows his market value at a 5-year deal worth $73.8 million. That is $14.7 million a year. That's about what it's going to cost to sign Taylor Moton on the open market. And that's in a bidding war. That number might be higher than that because other teams there's going to be a lot of teams looking for Taylor Moton. Okay? A lot of teams need O-line help, and Taylor Moton is a very, very great O-lineman in the NFL right now. So Scott's first job since free agency opens before the draft is to convince Taylor Moton that although there will be probably better contending teams with maybe more money in maybe sexier locations trying to recruit him, that the Carolina Panthers is actually the best spot for him to be, and the money we can give him and the pieces we can put around him will be better, and he'll have a better opportunity to get that ring, to get that hardware than he will have in other places. And when it comes to Curtis Samuel, he is a distant second. Now, Curtis is a good player. I said it before when I kept making videos saying the team needs to trade Curtis Samuel so we get something out of him. Possibly a third-round pick before the deadline. Curtis Samuel is a very good receiver. But on this Panthers team, he is the fourth receiving option. Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, a healthy Christian McCaffrey are all clearly going to get more touches than Curtis Samuel. Then it's Curtis Samuel who is our fourth receiver on this team when Christian McCaffrey is healthy. You don't pay what Spot Rack is saying Curtis Samuel is worth on the open market because it's going to be a bidding war for him too. Everyone knows how good Curtis Samuel is. We watched him at The Ohio State. We saw what he's done when he's got his chances here in Carolina. Spot Rack says he's worth a 4-year deal worth $47.9 million. That is $11.9 million a year. I'm pretty sure it's 11.98, so let's call it $12 million a year. Assuming Spot Rack is right, and that is what his market value is, that's on par with like a Brandon Cooks or a Jarvis Landry, those kind of players. It's going to be hard to keep Taylor Moton and Curtis Samuel. And if we can't keep Taylor Moton, I'm not all that sure we should spend $12 million a year for our fourth option at receiver. When you can just go ahead and draft a receiver in the fourth and get somewhere around there. I like Omar Bayless. Don't forget about Omar Bayless. He's a really good receiver too. He was hurt. He might be able to come back this season. It's real tough, but that's something that Scott Fitterer has to figure out for himself with the cap room we have and the priority on Taylor Moton. What do you do with those two players? That's number one. Number two, forging a plan for what the future of this team is going to look like from the quarterback position. We know that most likely Teddy Bridgewater is going to be the starter this year because he's going to be earning what? It's either $20 million or $22 million this season alone. You do not bench a man and give him $20+ million for free. That's what the Hornets did with Nick Batum. So I guess it's a very, very good metaphor there as well. So you got to figure out, what are you going to do? Are you drafting a quarterback this year? Are you going to sit on it and wait and draft a quarterback in the next draft in 2022? Are you going to use that number 8 pick on a quarterback? And who's it going to be? We know this team needs a franchise quarterback, but don't feel like you're getting back into a corner if Sunshine's gone, Justin Fields is gone, but you see there's guys like Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mack, Trask still on the board, and you don't feel 100% confident that those guys can be 15-year starters on this team, then you don't need to get a quarterback. Prioritize things the team needs. Maybe O-line, maybe a DB. If you want to get a tight end, then hell, bro. At this point, get a tight end. I don't know. Some of y'all want tight ends in the first round. I can't call it. But you have to figure out what the plan is and what your priorities are in the draft. And that has to happen starting now. Starting very, very soon. Senior Bowl is very soon. The Combine is very, very soon. Things are going to be happening very quickly for him, and you need to have a plan going into the draft. And I think Scott's shown he has the experience from what he was doing with the Seahawks all those years. I believe in him to be able to get to that point and scout, and I want him to show me. Prove to me, I like being wrong. Prove to me that all those bad drafts for the past 6 years on the Seahawks was because the people up top weren't listening to you. But I'm also going to tell you this. Don't you let that pressure get to you. If you do not believe there is a quarterback who can be a long-term, multi-deal franchise piece for your team, a Super Bowl winner for your franchise, do not get pressured into picking up whoever's the third or fourth best quarterback in this draft, because the same fans who are begging you to draft that player right now, if he don't pan out, those same people are going to call you a horrible GM who has no idea how to evaluate talent. I promise you that. I've seen it before. I promise you that. That's number 3 on my list. Find out what your priorities are in the draft. Number 4, figure out what you're going to do with your staff. A couple guys from our staff, Jake Pete, our quarterback coach, is going to be gone. I think our O-line coach also got poached. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I think at least 2 of our dudes who coach positions have been poached by other teams so far. And Joe Brady was gunning for a head coach job somewhere. He did not get the Atlanta job. I'm pretty sure Arthur Smith got that job. So we're going to have Joe Brady again this year. But you better believe next year we're going through the same exact thing, so go on ahead and start looking for your next offensive coordinator. This man, Joe Brady, is putting out an audition tape for the other 31 teams in the league. I promise you that. Gotta figure that out between now and next year, and you better pick the right one because we're going to be getting our new quarterback either this year or next year. So, gotta find the right guy, the right fit, and the right way to move this franchise forward. That is number 4. You gotta find the right guys to coach these players because coaching, we've seen in a lot of places, coaching is very important. Culture is very important. You got to keep guys who are very good at their job, but also make sure the environment is the right kind of environment you want for your franchise. Because you're in control of that as well. I'm going to throw Matt Lombardi, who's our assistant quarterback coach, his name out there. Maybe he can be the OC after Joe Brady. If you want to keep a guy who is already on the inside, an interior hire, maybe Lombardi can do something. Anyway, number 5 is very easy. Figure out what you're going to do in free agency. Make the best moves. You don't have to go for all these splash plays. You don't have to make a ton of moves, but make very efficient, very team-friendly contracts that pick up good players in positions of need, or at least in places where we need more depth, like O-line, maybe even linebacker core. I like a lot of the guys on the squad right now. I mean, Sam Franklin surprised me after Justin Burris got hurt. But there's going to be a time where we see maybe Trey Boston gets hurt. Trey ain't going to be on this team for very much longer. I promise you that. We got to figure that out. We need a number 1 corner because we have a guy who's our best corner, but we don't have a number 1 corner, if you get what I'm saying. Also, we don't have any corners on a single player. Not a single corner on this team is a man coverage corner. I would look for a guy who can play in man. I love Rasul Douglas in zone. In man, he gets burnt. In zone, he looks very good. Check the tape. So we got to figure out what we're going to do there. I think free agency is where you make your money, bro. You got to make sure you're not overpaying players, but you also got to make sure you're not overestimating players. You got to be very efficient here. Find the right guys. And this team can make moves as soon as this year. Wouldn't call it a deep playoff year, but, we can make some moves. And moving forward, we can have a very solid roster. That's how I feel about it, though, man. What are all your thoughts on Scott, on the quarterback decision, the draft, Taylor Moton versus Curtis Samuel? Do you want one? Do you want both? Do you want neither? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. And you already know what to do with that like button.
Cheers to you, appreciate the chance. Been told y'all I been the man. Been told y'all I had the gift. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Real ones gonna recommend. Count this as another win.